I'd even go a step further. I think we sanitized entrepreneurship from failure. And I'm not talking the big failures. I'm talking about the little stuff. We created an educational system in entrepreneurship, and I was part of that that created this mythical process where we teach you how to write this marvelous 50-page document and put you through the ringer in terms of the minutiae of the research in this and all of that. And in reality, it's a pretty marvelous work of fiction. I mean, it didn't have anything to do with anything that was going to be real. And we knew that in our hearts, but for whatever reason, that was kind of where we had gotten to, and we had lost the fact, and I think a lot of us kind of assumed you understood that there's risk in this. And all of a sudden, we started to go, many of us, I remember one conversation in a national meeting, we kind of looked at each other and went, they really don't get it. They think that this is real, that this plan, that's really the ticket to starting a business. And they don't understand that that's just like one step in a much more complicated process, and it's really just a way of kind of getting some things organized.
Yeah.
And so we've actually radically changed how we teach things, many of us, and it's kind of a wave of change that's going on now. You wouldn't recognize some of the classes, and you only graduated 3 years ago.
Yeah,
would not recognize some of the classes in terms of how we approach it, and it's not that it's different from what we did. It's actually more like what I did as an entrepreneur, because I used failure as part of the learning process.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think, if you go back to, my dad actually met Edison at one point. He worked for a company called McGraw Edison that had actually bought the company that Thomas Edison had founded, so the whole failure thing is something I remember hearing about. That was still part of their culture that came from that part of the business back when I was a young guy.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, it's a series of experiments, and that's really how we teach planning now. Is stop this 50-page, locked up in your room business plan that's just a marvelous work of fiction, and get out there and get a good business model, and then prove to yourself that it's probably not that good after all, with some real life customers, and experiment and develop and experiment and develop, and from your successes and failures, little ones, you can start to build more big success. And by embracing those little failures and learning from them and understanding them, and understanding that they're a natural part of everything, that you actually reduce the chance of the big failure. One of my dear friends talks about it is it's letting off the steam of the project, and if you let off the steam, it's not going to blow up. And that's really the process that you need to go through. So I think if you look at what it, and I have no regrets from what we did in teaching. I've worked on this program for 8 years. I took a wrong turn when I kind of bought into the standard approach of everything culminates up in that big, huge, gigantic, monstrous business plan project at the end.
Yeah.
And that was a failure, by and large. The students learned a lot of things they needed to learn, but at my level of perfection, in terms of what I want you guys prepared for, that was clearly something that was wrong. Okay, I figured that out. We broke it and rebuilt it, and it works a whole lot better now. And luckily, we have a great relationship with most of our alums. And so through a lot of coffee cup conversations and so forth, we offer you guys this lifetime warranty, which allows us to fix up the things that we may have messed up along the way. And that's one. And it was a failure. That last class, as much as the students liked it and gave me really good evaluations on it, and I got all kinds of accolades for it, in my mind, it was a failure, because it really didn't prepare you for how businesses should be launched.
Yeah.
And it didn't reflect how I launched most of my businesses. I didn't sit down and write these massive plans every time I started a venture.
Yeah.
I did a few times because I needed financing.
Right.
Most of the time I did it on the whiteboard, and it was modeling. It was this process of engaging the idea and then getting out and just kicking it around, see what worked, try it.
Yep.
And take the surprises, and And you can call them failures, you can call them learning. I don't care. It's just it's part of that process. And those little failures, if you want to call them that, are what gets you to the right success.
Yeah.
And if we understand that failure is just cool, it happens. Okay, you're not going to be perfect.
Absolutely.
The students I worry about the ones who are obsessed on perfection in minutia, because they're the ones who are going to get the biggest shock when they get out there. I didn't worry about you because you weren't obsessed with the minutia.
Yeah.
And so I knew you'd hit some things and you'd brush yourself off and move on. But there are some students who, they're obsessed with the 4.0 grade point, and they're obsessed with getting every little T crossed and I dotted. And that's not the point of learning, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
We've gone so far in how we talk about the program here now, where when I have kids coming in here from high school, I say, you need to understand something here. The classroom is really just supplemental. That's just a supportive environment for where you can really learn, and that's outside the classroom.
Yeah.
I want you to go out and start things. I want you to just really try and start things, and I want you to have some failures, and I want you to have some successes, and I want you to learn from those while you're in the safe environment, while we can take that and use that to take you down the road so that when you graduate, you've got the best chance of success, whatever direction you decide to go. And it's been, we had a lot of the outside the classroom stuff when you were here, but it's always kind of out there.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of flipping that, and we're not done with this yet. We're just kind of moving in this direction now, but that experiential part becomes the real part, and the classroom becomes kind of, okay, well, how do we put understanding around what I'm experiencing over here? And that's really how an MBA works when it works best. You guys wonder why I say don't take an MBA right away. It's because the MBA is such a beautiful learning experience because you're bringing all of those things that you've messed up and you've done well, and you get to bring them in the classroom and go, oh, that's what was happening. That's what that was, and understand that. There's no reason we can't do that real time, and that's what we're working towards trying to do. But it took failures, not massive failures, little failures. All of a sudden we started looking at, oh God, these people really think this business plan is the ticket. That's not right.
Yep.
And we were able to kind of reel them in and kind of explain to them, but it was messy, and now we're getting it right.
Yeah, I think that's very revealing. The phrase you use of go, kick it around and actually try it, kind of a thing, and that has I guess it's very revealing of failure, because you want to get all, like you said, you want to get all those little failures out of the way, and then you say, okay, if this really isn't going to work, I don't want to waste my time on it, kind of a thing, any more than I have to, and then on to the next one. So I think that it's really difficult, at least it was for me. It was really, because after I hit like an initial failure and was like, oh, that's what failure is, then you snap back, and then you're like, okay, you go back to like that little locked up in your room, write the business plan kind of a thing, plan it out, oh, I got this grand thing or whatever, and then just like dump it out all on the world, as opposed to really including a lot of people, all through the process, kicking around, asking people what they think, actually trying to get a customer, actually, testing it around, and just in welcoming all of the, little mistakes and failures that people help reveal to you, because you need to know how to fix. You need to know that those exist, because you're not going to see it all the time, and you got to fix it.
And that's why Edison's such a good metaphor. He was ultimately an engineer, and the engineers, they understand that. They don't build the finished product.
Right.
They build a prototype.
Mm-hmm.
Does it work? Does the basic things work? Yeah, it kind of works. Then they start to tweak it, and they get it better, and they get it better. And even when they get the ultimate finished product, they're already working on the next model, because they know there's still inherent problems and flaws, failures, potential failures in that. And they're comfortable with the fact that this is going to be just an infinite iterative process. And we also have to understand that not all failure comes from the same thing. That there is failure that happens because you and I don't do things properly. We miss something.
Mm-hmm.
There's failure because we misinterpret things. But there's something that looks just like those failures that's completely outside of our control. And that's because the market changes. or a competitor outsteps us. And so what was success 2 weeks ago no longer works. Well, it's still in this fuzzy thing we call failure. But the reason you need to be comfortable with failure is, failure is going to come from all kinds of sources. Some are internal. Many of them are external.
Yeah.
And failure is just, it's not working.
Yep.
Either it's not working anymore, or it's not working now, or it never was going to work. It doesn't really matter. It means it's not working. And you got to have the skill set to be able to take that information and fix it.